Happy Coffee and Cursey Words Tuesday. I have my coffee. I have my Cursey Words. Today we are doing a quick look at kind of an update to what's going on with James Charles, because I did make some statements about how I felt legally about the whole situation, and I've changed my mind on some of those things. So I feel the need to be like, I've changed my mind on some of these things, because I always say, as more information comes out, my opinion may change. And then a quick look at what's going on in the Britney Spears case, because I will be digging into that as it gets closer to the hearing later this month. But I've gotten a ton of questions about what is going on, and I thought it was time for a little bit of a, hey, this is why this happens this way in conservatorship. There are new documents in the Girardi case that I'm going to be diving into, not today, but soon. So today, a quick look at James Charles, a quick look at the Britney Spears case. I'm not going to get into the nuts and bolts of James Charles, but I will trigger warning it before I get into it, because the topics are sensitive. And then lots of questions. We have been getting into so many deep dives here that we have not had a ton of time for questions. So when I throw it open to questions, it doesn't have to be just today's topics. We can just have a good old chat, a chatty chat. Then we'll do some housekeeping, but let's just get into it first, and then we'll get into housekeeping stuff. So let's do that. Let's get into it. Hey there. If we haven't met yet, I'm Emily D. Baker, the badass lawyer and everyone's favorite legal commentator. I'm the host of The Emily Show, and I break down the legal shit behind the news and pop culture stories we all want to talk about. I have been a licensed attorney for over 15 years, but this is not legal advice. I should warn you, I'm a big fan of the Cursey Words. This channel is where the law nerds unite to talk about facts, not fuckery. I enjoy that intro so much. I really do. So housekeeping, there will be on, it's Tuesday already. You guys, this week, last week, they're all blending together. It has been busy over here. I will tell you what. I have done a lot of guest appearances, like OPP, other people's podcasts, other people's YouTube channels, a lot of other people's property. With OPP, yeah. Okay, look, if you're new here, that happens. I have been on a lot of YouTube channels, podcasts, and other things talking about Jen Shah and the Real Housewives. Look, when it comes to white collar crime, I'm always so excited to break it down for people, especially when it seems that the topics are complex as a fraud stream. This is what it's going to be like all day today, as a fraud scheme or a fraud ring is. So it is just complex. So I've been having a lot of fun talking about that with other Bravo watchers, the Bravo faithful, the Bravo friends. I have really enjoyed that quite a lot. And not to say that it's fun. I don't want to see anyone be a victim of fraud. And, when it comes to defendants, it's like, well, if you picked that, you're innocent till proven guilty. But if you picked that, then you picked that. That was your choice. Victims don't really have a choice. So that has been the breakdown on the Jen Shah stuff, which is why it has been a busy week. And then it was Easter weekend. My kids both asked that I not work over the weekend. I often work on the weekends, at least a bit. So took the whole weekend off. And then my husband's back went out. So we spent the morning at the chiropractor and doing stuff to help him out with that. Both of us have back issues and fall prey every now and then. It will happen at some point. It will happen at some point that you will get a text crew message. If you're part of the text crew, you will get a text crew message. You will get a see it on my community tab or on Twitter that I'm like, look, today I cannot move. So we're not going to be live. It will happen at some point. Hopefully not anytime soon, but at some point, I'm sure it will happen. So he is feeling much better after the chiropractor. Look, a good chiropractor is something that we very much enjoy. I know not everybody likes chiropractic. I grew up with one of our family's closest friend is a chiropractor. Chiropractic has helped us quite a lot. Finding a good one is key, and it's something that we love. So feeling better he is. That was the most Yoda-y thing I've said in a while. Other things. Tomorrow, there is a new episode of The Emily Show podcast, and I'm dropping a new video here. It's going to be a quick case brief. I've got 2 of those coming your way. So I took the audio version and broke it down into 2 case briefs. So for those of you that love the audio version, it'll be there. For those of you that want to just see the case brief breakdowns, it will be here. If you are not part of the text crew, you are always welcome to join, because I saw some of you being like, what? TextEmily.com from your mobile device will get you there if you're in North America. We're working on expanding it. And those are kind of the general housekeeping things. Then we have Friday Night Live. I am talking to a few other creators about collaborations, and I will be letting you know when we're doing those things. A lot of you have asked me about the Chauvin trial regarding the death of George Floyd. I do have early podcasts about that when this all went down, about the laws of Minnesota and what I thought he would be charged with. I do not have any updates yet. I have not been following the news as closely as I would like to comment on it, because look, pop culture is so much lighter in spirit, and I know that not everyone can escape the heavy of this case, and it is very heavy. I've seen a lot of testimony that's going to be very positive for the prosecution in this case. Based on what I've seen so far, there is definitely room for a jury to convict, but I want to give that all of the thought. For the time being, Natalie Lawyer Chick has been doing amazing breakdowns. She is a defense attorney. She is a brilliant attorney. She has great content here on YouTube, and she has been absolutely on top of it. So while I have been flapping around with housewives, white collar crime, she has been diving in to what's going on in that trial. And I would encourage everyone to go watch her channel. She is fantastic. And I always love shouting out another creator, and the ladies of law tube. So love to share that. She's been just doing a great job with that case. So please, if you want that content, go check out that content, and I will bring you my thoughts when I have them put together. I was intending to wait until we saw what the jury did, but I might just have a chitty chat with Natalie about it instead. So we'll see. But today, pop culture things. Why? Because pop culture tends not to be as loaded. Pop culture tends not to be as heavy on everybody. And sometimes we just need not heavy stuff. Grace case, that is absolutely going to happen. We are figuring that out. I love that. Thank you. I was trying to pop up this one, but Nights Who Sydney, I always love to see you. Ladies Who Law. Absolutely, Valerie. Ladies Who Law. So let's talk about James Charles real quick. If you all aren't following the James Charles, this is the point where the video just automatically gets demonetized. If you all aren't following what's going on with James Charles, I understand. I get you. I should also say, if you are in the replay crew, there will be timestamps below. I always mean to say that earlier and I forget, but it's only like 8 minutes in. If you're in the replay crew, there will be timestamps down below, and we will link Natalie Lawyer Chick's channel down below. Always happy to shout her out and send people her way. So, James Charles. The reason I'm addressing it is because if you are a channel member, you saw my live react to his apology video. Is it an apology? His please forgive me video. Please forget about everything I've done video. But in that video, he admits to having text message conversations of an inappropriate kind with individuals not of the age of majority. So, under the age of 18. I am a mother of a 13-year-old boy. So I feel like I have some understanding of the mental state and capacity of this age child, not just from my own remembrances of being a child of this age. So when I look at the messages he's sending, some of the allegations are kids as young as 14 years old. I'm also looking at my own child going, you know, do you have the capacity to really understand things that are happening if you're talking to your favorite YouTuber? And this said from a parent who allows my kids to watch YouTube. My youngest's favorite YouTube channel right now is The Odd Ones Out, except for Tico. Freaking Tico. No shade to Tico as a creator, but oh my God, it is grating on the adults. It is grating on the adults. There is lots of screaming. There is lots of yelling. My child actually would not eat fish the other night for dinner, and he loves fish, but he's like, Tico says don't eat fish. Tico's character in Fortnite is a fish, and Tico runs around and is like, ah! But this is the influence. This is the influence the YouTubers have, because Tico's like, don't eat the fish. Fun. And then my kid at dinner is like, I don't want to eat fish. Tico's, and I'm like, no, Tico's a character played by a YouTuber on the YouTubes. Like, stop it. But my oldest loves Technoblade, and there's a few other channels that he really enjoys. And the way that those channels interact, if my kids were reached out by one of their favorite channels, first of all, they're not on social media, so there's no way that that would happen. But if they did, and as my kids get older on social, because I don't think kids should not be on social, I think it's our job as parents to help them learn how to navigate it versus keeping them off of social and then being like, okay, you're 18, good luck. I think it's our job to help kids learn how to navigate technology and learn how to navigate being on social media. And it's something that's not going to go away. It's something that we're not going to get rid of. I don't even want to, but helping kids navigate, it's our job. So my perspective, every parent parents their way they want to, but I think navigating, it's our job, because when we come to things like what's going on with James Charles, and I hate talking about this, because it makes me like, I try to bring facts and put aside the fact that all of this makes me mad, and all of this does make me mad. So there is definitely emotion here, because the James Charles stuff makes me angry, and there are facts separate from that, but it also makes me angry. So sometimes it's hard for me to talk about and just be like, I need to separate the two, and I will do my best to tell you where I'm separating the two and what makes me mad. But it's the same reason I was ranting on Instagram last night about Rachel Hollis. People taking advantage of their platform is the same feeling for me as Tom Girardi taking advantage of his clients. You are in a privileged position of trust with the people who are in your audience. And when you just show up like you don't give a fuck, it's offensive. And not having basic human decency towards your audience, without whom you have none of the things. The reason that someone like James Charles has sponsorships is because of the amount of reach and influence he has over his audience. He makes money to influence others to buy the shit that he talks about. I understand how that works. I take sponsorships too of things that I care about and things that I like. But when we look at somebody like Rachel Hollis, the reason that she has, fame and some kind of internet celebrity and books that are on the New York Times bestseller list is because she has a large audience that she's built that buy her shit and buy it quickly and when she asks. So this disrespect of one's audience really just pisses me off. It's a absolute privilege to be able to sit down with an audience and make a living doing that. It is an absolute honor to get to do that. But to do that, you have to not only trust your audience, but you have to show up authentically to your audience, unless you build a brand on not being authentic. Jeffree Star. Like Jeffree Star. He literally can't relate was one of his taglines. He built a brand on not being relatable. That is his thing. His audience can see him for who he is. He shows up as who he is. There are old videos of him being who he is. You can choose to take that or leave that. I can't with that, but it's up to each person who decides what to watch. But the fake curated imperfection and the curated authenticity that we see with somebody like a Rachel Hollis, and I think honestly, like James Charles as well, makes me just fucking mad. So James Charles is using his power as a celebrity, as somebody with 25 million followers on or subscribers on YouTube at the time I'm recording this. Who knows if that'll change? And who I have no idea how many followers or whatever they're called on TikTok he has. He was using TikTok and Instagram as a way to connect with his audience, his younger audience. You can legally be on those apps at 13 years old. Instagram's actually starting to change so that you can make sure you're not DM'd by anyone under the age of 18, which I think is appropriate, a lot to manage, but appropriate. He was using his, as he said in his apology video, his For You page on TikTok or his Explore page on Instagram, which I literally never go on, as a dating app. Like, oh, cute, I'll message you. The thing is, on those platforms, the power disparity is so great because he's a celebrity. People who might not otherwise be interested are like, I'm up for it. I'm up for it. You're famous. I'm up for it. It might be funny. Let's see what happens. Or I'm a massive fan. And so I'm going to come from a place of I'm a massive fan. And so I'm going to share things with you I might not otherwise share. I'm going to feel a connection with you or a parasocial relationship with you I might not otherwise feel. And people will bring that to James Charles's feet, and he uses that to try to date them, or as we're seeing more and more, to try to solicit photos in the buff from them. And that is where my opinions, when I've talked about whether the things he was doing were illegal, not illegal, whether there could be prosecution, not prosecution. I have a whole video where I talk about the ins and outs of where kind of that line is, particularly in California, which is where James Charles, to my knowledge, lives. The ins and outs of those lines and the ins and outs of what he was sending versus what he was soliciting. And was it for a adult purpose or adult activity gratification? You can fill in the S words on your own, but whether or not he was doing that for that reason. And then we've seen a number of additional Snapchats be released and revealed. Other TikTokers come forward. One of the individuals who has been categorizing this and chronicling this on Twitter is Deaf Noodles. I know not everybody loves Deaf Noodles. I get it. But if you want a repository of all of this stuff that's going down, he has it all on Twitter. The drama channels have been covering it really, really well. I know Dick. We've celebrity named Nick and Dustin Dick. I apologize, Nick and Dustin, but you won't be offended by that. Nick and Dustin have been covering it. I know that that Peter Mon has covered it, and I have seen that Drama and Opinions have covered it. I am sure that Truth Sleuth has covered it, though I haven't gotten back around to her channel to see if she has. She covers stuff really well. So Petty Page has covered it. A lot of channels have been covering what's going on. So if you want the whole breakdown of all of the stuff that's come forward, Angelica Oles too, and I believe Smokey Glow did a video about it as well. So if you want a whole breakdown of like the backstory, those channels have covered this stuff. I think that Creepshow covered it. I also think that there was a live stream by D'Angelo Wallace, which means it'll probably be up on YouTube soon too. Would very much be interested in his thoughts on this. So there's coverage of it. With the coverage of it, additional things have come out showing that there was this intention towards gratification. Things being said that are inappropriate, like, if you send me this video, or if you send me a picture of this, I'm almost there. I bet you could make me finish with just a picture. Now, in context of everything, that is going to be easier to say, look, these things were for this purpose, which for a lot of the laws is the underlying intent there with the laws. And we talked about this on this channel with regard to the Jason Nash and David Dobrik prank against Seth. And we've talked about some of the difficulties between a adulty assault and a regular assault. And we've talked about those unwanted things in that context because the purpose underlying it is important. But in the newer snaps that have been released, there is clearly conversation about the purpose for gratification. And yes, I am talking around it. YouTube wants it talked around. I understand that you all probably get what I'm talking about. So now that we're seeing a solicitation of photos, which is different than a sending of photos in the eyes of the law, now that we're seeing this solicitation of the photos and we're seeing more context with regard to the purpose and the volume of individuals who are going to say there were these inappropriate things, I think we're setting up a situation where we could see at least a criminal investigation, if not a prosecution as to some of the minors, but also the situation where we can see civil lawsuits as well. And with regard to the civil lawsuits, parents can bring those. I mean, parents can also go to the police for minors and say, this is happening. I don't want this to happen. I've had those cases where parents are the ones who bring it to the police and are like, this is my child. This is what happened. Whether families choose to do that or not is something I am not going to judge. A lot comes out of trying to bring that. It can bring a lot of attention when it comes to a celebrity that a particular family may not want. And that is their right. And I know there will be some that are frustrated, like, but they need to protect others. I think, again, bringing this stuff public onto a platform, these articles being written about James Charles are out there. When you Google his name, this is going to stay attached to it. The videos made about this are going to stay. There is an awareness. There's been an awareness since 2019. I think this solidifies that awareness a little bit more. Kristen said someone just came out and said that while he was 21 when messaging James Charles, but cut off James Charles was being demanding and pushing. The person was older and recognized the power imbalance. And that is why it's so important that minors be treated like minors, because it's harder for them to recognize. Literally, their brains aren't developed yet, but those power dynamics become harder to overcome when you are younger because it's so important. You know, you see kids doing things and buying, merch from Jake Paul or whatever it is to feel a sense of closeness and to feel noticed. Imagine if that person then messaged you. But imagine that they then messaged you and started demanding that you do things. It's just so freaking dark, and it's such an inappropriate use of platform. And it's something that I don't say, come up here and deplatform people, come up here and take them away. But the platforms have to look at whether or not the platforms are responsible, whether the platforms are going to try to protect themselves, whether parents can try to come after the platforms. I don't think at this point they can. That's my opinion. I don't think that they can. But the platforms at some point are going to have to look at protecting themselves versus protecting James Charles or allowing him to still use their platform, particularly with Snapchat. And what we saw with David Dobrik is YouTube saying he's not behaving in a way that meets kind of the creator conduct standards. When does that apply to James Charles, though? Because when you're looking at culpability, David Dobrik was making money off of other people doing the shit that James Charles himself has admitted to doing. So if David Dobrik is culpable for that in a platform sense, when is James Charles culpable for that in a platform sense? Because in Twitter, he said, I was sending these messages I shouldn't have. And on video, he was saying, I sent these messages I shouldn't have. Now he tried to victim blame and deflect and say, I didn't know and they lied to me. It doesn't matter. The action still happened. So when now are we going to see the same standards being held across from just recently David Dobrik to James Charles? I have questions. Valeria said, Emily, what is it going to take for law enforcement to get involved with the James Charles situation? It will take individuals that have had these messages to come forward to the police and their parents to come forward to the police. Though that doesn't mean parents can't choose to not to. And they can also choose to pursue it civilly, where they might not be in the public eye as much and try to settle these things behind the scenes, which is what is alleged to have happened with Jeffree Star. Kat Trenberg had, I believe it was 2 articles about Jeffree Star's allegations against him and essentially reaching a settlement deal, i.e. paying off someone who was going to come forward with this and saying, you know what, we can resolve this behind the scenes. Here's money. That's not uncommon. And whether someone accepts that or not is their choice. And sometimes victims feel that it's in their best interest to not be super public, to take the money, go to therapy, and try to move on. And that can happen here too. If parents go to the authorities or if authorities come to them, then that process comes out of the realm of, we're able to civilly resolve this with money and into the realm of a criminal prosecution. It doesn't mean that criminal prosecution can't be difficult. And it doesn't mean that there aren't hurdles and obstacles you have to overcome with regard to jury bias and perception. That always happens when you get into something, especially messaging, that you're going to get jurors who like, well, they shouldn't have messaged him. Just like you're going to get jurors who are like, well, they shouldn't have had those drinks. Well, she shouldn't have worn that short skirt. They shouldn't have done that. You're always going to get some of that with some jurors, particularly when they are not tech savvy and they are not understanding the power dynamic that comes with celebrity. So will we see a criminal investigation? It depends if any of these parents choose to come forward, and they might not want to put their child through that. But it depends. We've seen with the Virginia case, the woman who was making deep fakes of cheerleaders, the videos on the channel. But we saw the 15-year-old who had the deep fake made of her come forward to her mom, and her mom go, no, we're going to authorities. We've got your back. We're doing this. And she and her daughter stood up together and said, this is not okay. Not as embarrassing, I don't think, as some of the things James Charles is asking minors to do. It shouldn't be shameful for the minors. It's shameful for James Charles to be abusing his power to get minors to do things they would not otherwise do. But it doesn't mean that there can't be shame internally from the person who is going to then also second guess themselves. And victims of crime do this all the time, not just with assaultive type crimes, but also with financial type crimes, is they feel like, oh, maybe I shouldn't do this. And we do have a society that will victim blame, that will say, well, should you have done this? Should you have done that? When it comes to minors, messaging, it doesn't matter what they should or shouldn't have done. He should never have been in touch with them. So thank you. You're all correcting me that it's Pennsylvania. Thank you. So it's just going to be interesting to see if people come forward. It's going to be interesting to see if they go to the authorities. And if there is criminal charges, we will absolutely talk about them. I'm not saying that that is an easy route for anyone involved. It is a hard thing to do. But it is something that as we move forward as a society and as we move forward with more empathy and more inclusiveness, I hope that the overwhelming narrative is not, well, these kids shouldn't have done this or shouldn't have done that. But the overwhelming narrative should be, Charles shouldn't have done this, full stop. Because doing this is a crime in some cases. And so when he did that, the minors responded to that dynamic and responded in the way that he asked them to respond. And that's why there's laws protecting minors. So it's not on them to do the right thing. It's on him to do the right thing because they're literal minors. And we protect children with laws because they're children. Even when they're 17, they are still children. God, even when they're 18, they don't make great decisions. It's like there's a growth that happens between 18 and 25 where you're just still not done yet. The decisions get better, but you're still not all the way done yet, which is why I think people do deserve grace. But in this case, this is not a one and oopsie, and I got called out for it. I lost 3 million subs in one day, and I learned. I think that's why there's so much outrage about this, because there was no learning. There's just a continuing pattern of behavior going, well, you shouldn't be mad at me about this because I was lied to. I told them not to go public. They're clout chasing. And that seems to be James Charles's narrative. Do you think Morphe isn't saying anything because of the alleged cosmetics line with JC? I feel like brands would protect themselves in a clause. Miranda, it depends when things are sized. Brands and brand deals normally do have some type of I hate to say morality because it makes it sound like, the behavior is immoral. The behavior with James Charles would be totally fine if everybody was over the age of 18. The problem is the age. So with kind of a behavior clause, thou shall not get into scandals. It just depends if it's there. I don't know why Morphe hasn't said everything. They distance themselves very quickly from others who have gotten into scandals. And this is different. This is not some drama between some YouTubers and calling each other out for being bad friends or mean humans or gross or whatever. This is darker than that. This is deeper than that. This is a celebrity using their platform to inappropriately access children. That's for their own gratification and purposes. That is what the allegations are. That is what he said he was doing in his video. He said, I was using my Instagram and my Snapchat as a dating app, and some of these people were underage. And they lied to me, and poor me. But he admitted it, and undoing that depending on what those videos are. And I suspect that James Charles feels very confident that the things on Snapchat once removed are permanently removed. I don't know what the back end of Snapchat looks like. I don't know if those can come to light. I don't know if people will choose to go to the police or not. What I do know is that from texting things that are vague, that's a lot harder to prosecute than texting things that are more graphic and soliciting images and sending images with that context. So as more has come out, I'm like, you know what? The initial stuff was very gray and could be very difficult to prosecute. This stuff is much clearer and could be much easier to prosecute. It doesn't necessarily mean that there can't be civil action. As Ethan asked, would something like a class action suit work? It would take all the families to come together, and whether they'd want to do that or not, we would see. But families can come together and civilly sue him for things like harassment, cyber harassment of a child, and other things. And we're seeing that with the Lopez brothers, though there was less just digital and more actual physical contact in that case. The digital stuff can come up civilly too, but that's suing not for somebody to go to jail. That is essentially suing for someone to pay for there to be monetary damages. And I love the conversation you guys are having in the chat. Thank you for being respectful. I think that this is a difficult topic. It's infuriating to me, not just because it's kids, but this misuse of platform is, it's offensive to me as a creator too. Just like the Girardi stuff's offensive to me as a lawyer too, because it's really not that hard to be a person of integrity. It's really not. It's not always comfortable, but it's not hard to be a decent human being and say, if you fuck up, hey, I fucked up. But there's a difference between fucking up and saying something flippantly, saying something crassly, saying something wrong, not understanding the impact your words have is different than actually coercing minors. Those are different things. And creators will fuck up. And I do think creators should be given grace most of the time. But when you see a continual pattern of behavior, there's no room for grace anymore. There was grace for James Charles in 2019. He went through a fall and people were like, you know what? I don't love the way that was called out. A lot of people don't love the way Bi Sister was called out. I don't love the way Bi Sister was called out. It was very public. It felt like an attack on a teen at the time. He was just 19 years old. But after that call out and build back, one would have hoped that we wouldn't have seen this anymore. James is now 21 and this behavior is continuing on. And he said in his video, I should have listened back then. Yep, you've had 2 years and you know what? You haven't changed a fucking thing. So now it's a pattern of behavior and we can just walk away and say, this is not somebody who should have a platform because they're using their platform to harm others actively. Oof, 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 oof. So that's my thoughts. And that's why I wanted to update coffee. That's why I wanted to update the James Charles stuff, because what I had said was that the earlier stuff that came out would have been harder to prosecute. I think the more recent stuff that came out would be easier to prosecute, and that there is definitely room for that given what we've seen now. And that's really it. And I will answer questions about that after I do. That's probably not the cats. That was a very loud noise, which means it's probably my husband and not the cats. I don't even have a lip gloss up here today, y'all. It's that kind of a day. Like that's where we're at. I have one. That's where we're at today. I don't even have lip gloss. And we will talk about when we get to questions. If you want to talk about culpability of platforms and stuff, we can. It's a very interesting conversation. It's a very interesting conversation. So the James Charles stuff just makes me mad. The Rachel Hollis stuff makes me mad. I ranted about it yesterday on IG. It's still up on IG stories. It just makes me mad. It just makes me mad. It's just Robbie points out this is an issue. And I really do think that the things James is doing can be very harmful to the gay community. Because James said that, he was attacked in Bi Sister because he was gay. And I don't necessarily agree with that, but it's also not my place to say that. It's my place to look to others who have said that. But I think Tati went after James because she was concerned. I do think that. Some people think it was because he was a rival. Some people think it's because he was, the Sugar Bear Harris stuff. I actually think she was concerned. I do. But when Peter Mon has broken down that the way James is comporting himself and he needs an older gay role model to kind of show him how to date, show him what it is, I was like, yes, Peter, yes. But I also think that James is too arrogant to think that he needs that and is willfully doing what he's doing because he thinks it's fun. So he wants to do what he wants to do. And he is young and he is rich and he is powerful. And we'll see how long that lasts. We'll see how long that lasts. I don't like the behavior at all. So that's where we're at with James. It is time to switch gears. When I get to questions, I will take questions on this and all the things, but it's time to switch gears to Britney because, if we're going to just talk about dark, sad shit all day, we're just doing it. The Britney Spears conservatorship, if you are following it closely, you will have seen on social media that additional documents have been filed. There are additional documents that have been filed. I'm not doing a whole deep dive today because I will do a deep dive once we get the responses to these documents. But there was a recent court order that we're going to talk about, and that was just filed yesterday. So I'm going to pull that up, and then we're going to talk about what they have filed and why they have filed it. Let me pull up my screen sharing because, of course, I am super prepared. Dr. Riley, thank you so much for the flawless recap of where we're at. I love it so much. I freaking love Bailey Sarian so much. Does she say choose better role models? Because that's exactly what it is. That's exactly what it is. And it can be hard for kids that aren't also on social. If they're just watching on YouTube, they don't know what their creators are up to. And parents don't always know what their creators are up to. Like if Technoblade was problematic, I would have no idea. That's who my kid likes to watch. I only see the videos. I should have just started clean into Britney, but now we're still carrying over. I apologize for all of you that hit the timestamp. I promise that we're talking about Britney Spears. Let's talk about this recent motion that was granted and go from there. Oh, and then I've got before we do questions, I'll talk about court of public opinion. My brackets aren't done yet because the weekend got long. And, my heart hurt a little with that UCLA Gonzaga game, but we can talk about brackets in a minute. Order granting motion to seal pleadings relating to the 12th account current report of conservator of the estate petition for its settlement and for approval thereof. This has been ongoing. This was regarding items. Let me back up. With the conservatorship, there is an accounting that goes through the court. Now, the attorney for Britney's the conservatee, but the attorney for Britney can object to things in the accounting, object to things getting paid, ask questions about why things are getting paid, how they're getting paid, and ask for things, in this case, to be sealed or unsealed. In those motions that were filed months and months and months ago, we saw the attorney for Britney, Sam Ingham, saying Britney wants this to be more open, wants things unsealed, and that there were only a very few items that they were agreeing should remain sealed. And those had to do with things like trade secrets. My sense that I took away from that was that Sam Ingham wanted the public, or Britney wanted the public, to be able to see how much people were getting paid as part of this conservatorship, because that's part of what's in these financial documents. I don't know why I'm so wiggly today. I'm just wiggly today. It just is. It just is. And there were objections with regard to some of the payments, including payments to Lou Taylor. There were objections with regard to some of the things being sealed. And we also now have new attorneys coming in here after the documentary. We had a new law firm brought back in. So let's just look at the motion to seal the pleadings and report of the conservator and petition for its settlement. Let's see. The judge is approving these payments. Let's look at what the judge has recently approved, and then we'll talk about the new payments that are being asked for. Those are going to be heard later in April. This hearing was November 10th, so this is a ruling that's coming down from this November 10th hearing date, and we're just going to go through it real quick. The motion to seal pleadings related to the 12th account current report of conservator of the estate, petition for its settlement and approval thereof. Conservator of the estate of Britney Spears came for a hearing November 10th in Department 4. Vivian L. Thorin and Jonathan H. Park of Holland and Knight, and Geraldine A. Wiley and Gerald S. Cohen of Freeman and Smiley all appeared by court call, essentially, on behalf of James Spears. Just let that sink in for a minute. Let that sink in for a minute. 4 attorneys: Vivian, Jonathan, Geraldine, and Gerald. 4 attorneys for the conservator of the estate, James P. Spears, conservator of the estate of Britney Spears. Mr. Spears appeared by LA Court Connect. Sam Ingham and David Nelson and Ronald C. Pearson of Loeb & Loeb, court-appointed counsel for Britney Spears, all appeared on Court Connect on behalf of Britney. Lorianne. Hey, there's a Lorianne in this too. Look at that. Lorianne. Why is there always a Lorianne? Why? Okay. Lorianne Wright of Wright Kim Douglas ALC appeared on behalf of Jody Montgomery, temporary conservator of the person. Now, there is a motion pending for Jody Montgomery to become the permanent conservator of the person, with, James Spears being the co-conservator of the estate. Miss Montgomery appeared on Court Connect. Yasha, I can't do this last name. I am sorry. I'm going to try. Bronstein. Oh, that's bad. I apologize. Of Ginsburg and Braun Shettin appeared on behalf of Lynn Spears, Gladstone and Jones, and Linny Swanson of Jones Swanson, Huddle, and Garrison appeared on behalf of Lynn Spears. This is a fuck ton of lawyers that appear. This is an entire paragraph of lawyers that appeared. So lawyers for James Spears, lawyers for Britney Spears, lawyer for Lynn Spears, and lawyers for Jody Montgomery all appeared. Having read the motion, the opposition to the motion, and I've got other videos covering that on the channel, the court finds and follows all notices have been properly given. Cool. Ingham withdraws his opposition to the motion and agrees the motion should be granted based on the mutually agreed changes, which means he's conceding to the payments to what's her face? It'll come back to me. Lou Taylor. The following portions of the 12th accounting position shall be unredacted and are not to be sealed. And this gets into the lines that aren't going to be sealed. With exception of the item set forth in paragraph 3, the order is granted. There is no constitutional right to public access of conservatorship proceedings. True. In the context of this conservatorship proceeding, the conservatee's right to attorney-client privilege communications and medical privacy are per se confidential. So those are things that should remain confidential in the eyes of the court. The conservatee has an overriding interest that overcomes the right of public access to the records. Britney has a right for this shit to be private more than the public has a right to see what's going on. The conservatee's overriding interest supports sealing the record. The thought, again, that conservatorships are made to protect the individual in the conservatorship. A substantial probability exists that the conservatee's overriding interest will be prejudiced if the public record is not sealed. No less restrictive means exist. The proposed sealing is narrowly tailored as possible, given the public's interest in access to these proceedings will be satisfied because the pleadings relating to the 12th accounting are in minimally redacted form with they were filed publicly with court order on the 12th petition. The sealed portions and supporting documents contained in the 12th accounting shall be sealed pursuant to this order, and only the redacted version shall be part of the public record. Pending further order of the court, the register of actions are sealed. In addition, the following persons are authorized to inspect the sealed portion, and that gets into the attorneys who are inspected to seal it. So that's just talking about the sealing, but the way that the court said, report of conservator for the estate, petition for its settlement and approval thereof, I think that's the court approving that settlement. So the record is only slightly being changed, with most things being unredacted. And those are payments that are going to go forward out of the estate from that 12th accounting that we have previously covered, that included paying people like Lou Taylor, paying business managers, paying for, and that was right before Lou Taylor was no longer the business manager, paying the attorneys and everything else. There is also a new request to appoint counsel and pay for counsel and approve payment of that. This is probably the one that you've seen. That's the wrong one. This is probably the one you've seen in the news. Wrong one. And that is the one that's being reported on, showing what is being requested, what is being paid for. And these are all the objections from Jody Montgomery. So let me pull out the initial one. Where is it? Nope. Of course it's not pulling up. What was this other court ruling? There is a court hearing on April 27th. That's the one regarding the new payment of funds, where James Spears is seeking to pay the attorneys for himself more, hire new attorneys, and have those payments approved. So I have the verification of the petition for order allowing and approving payment of compensation to conservator and attorneys for conservator and reimbursement of costs. That's for hearing on April 27th. And I am not seeing the underlying petition, which I had pulled up and now cannot find. So of course, let me see if I can pull it up, because these are the motion from Jody Montgomery. Let's see if this has it attached, because the conservator for the person has also weighed in on this and weighed in on what should happen and should stuff be redacted or not redacted in this new request as well. Let's see. Here we go. Ex parte application for order authorizing conservator to hire Miller Kaplan. I want to say Arse, but it's not Arasi, as business manager. Declaration of Vivian Thoreen. Therein, urgent notice. The conservator for Britney Spears applies ex parte order hiring Miller Kaplan as business manager to provide urgent business management and tax services for the estate. The application is based on the probate code. On the following grounds: MKA's engagement as business manager terminated as of March 30th. The business manager pays bills, receives income, keeps the books and records. As discussed below, Mr. Spears does not have the authority to single-handedly to pay bills or transfer funds, which is a good thing. Without a business manager in place, bills cannot be paid. Given the order appointing Bessemer Trust as co-conservator of the estate has not been signed yet, and Bessemer Trust is still in the process of onboarding as co-conservator, Spears seeks court approval to hire MKA. Now, I don't know. They're hiring them, essentially extending them. They're not hiring them new. They had been the business manager. But if Bessemer Trust is coming on, the argument before was, can't Bessemer just handle it? But MKA agreed to perform further services. It sounds like things urgently need to get done, including the payment of funds. The services are needed urgently, et cetera, et cetera. So this is, let's see, here's the money stuff. The material terms of the proposed agreement are as follows: MKA to provide business management and tax services, including bill paying, bookkeeping, court accountings, preparation of tax returns for the conservatee individually and her corporations, monthly retainer of $37,000, 30-day termination. Should a corporate entity become co-conservator, Bessemer Trust of the estates, MKA will work with them to renegotiate the arrangement and assure there's no duplicative fees, which is good. The other motion was for payment of the attorneys and payment of James Spears. And again, Britney does have to pay for the attorneys for her father, the attorneys for the estate, the business manager. All of this stuff is paid for by Britney as the conservatee. When we get a response from Sam Ingham or a response from Jody Montgomery, I'm going to break down that whole new motion for fees together in a full breakdown. This was just a what is it? Why is it? What is it? Asking for payment of fees. Why is it? Because they hired new counsel. Why did they need new counsel? We're going to deep dive into it. But yes, Britney has to pay all that stuff. Yes, because she's a conservatee. No, she can't really do much other than object to that, which we've seen Sam Ingham do with regard to certain items where he said, why are we paying this? Why are we paying that? I would like to see, personally, what Emily thinks makes sense. I would like to see, as Bessemer Trust comes on, that MKA turns things over to Bessemer. So Britney's not paying for a business manager, a corporate trustee, and her father as trustee, because right now she's paying for all of it. So when people look at her estate and go, why is there not as much money as one would think she would have in the estate? The amount of money that she's paying out, when we're looking at just $37,000 a month for just this part, that's why we're looking at so much stuff. Because we're looking at over $100,000 a year for her dad. We're looking at the attorneys for her father. We're looking at her also now paying Bessemer Trust and for paying this business manager. It is a lot of stuff that she has and is financially shouldering. I understand that we are in April. It's April 5th, 6th, that has expired at March, that taxes are coming up. I imagine the court will grant that maybe for the next couple months and then turn it over to Bessemer, and we'll see. That's what I'm hoping happens, because it seems that from her attorney's filings, she wanted Bessemer Trust to work with her father, and I would like to see that continue. I would like to see that turned over to Bessemer. So we'll see what happens. There's also a motion pending to make Jody Montgomery the permanent conservator of the person, which means it wouldn't expire and have her dad come back as conservator over herself. It's a lot of stuff. We need another Britney deep dive, but let's get into questions. I will do a whole nother episode update of the Emily show, just deep diving into everything that's happened since the last one, because it's so much. It's so much. It's so much. So let's go ahead and hop into question. Please, 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 please put question before your question. It makes it much easier for me to see it and answer it. And I'm going to scroll back up a little to see if I can sweep some in and then pull down and get into it. Anna, yes, there are a lot of people making money. And the thing with the Britney Spears conservatorship is that the people making money off of this are also the people in the position to manage this. And it's the same thing I say about Congress and the Senate. The people in charge of the money are the people in charge of how much power they have. So when the people who are making the money and benefiting off the things are the only people that can stop the thing, what are we going to do? Like, when the day comes, if the day comes that Britney asks to be out of either the financial part of the conservatorship or the individual personal part of the conservatorship, the person objecting will be her father with his team of lawyers that Britney's paying for. She's going to pay for the people to object to her. The shit is bananas. Bananas. That's what it is. That's just what it is. Hi, Anne. Is it possible for her to get the lawyer's fees back from her dad? No, it is not. The court approves them. It is a cost of the conservatorship that she pays for her conservatee. So no, we cannot. No, we cannot. Angry vampire. No, we're not harming anyone. And no, it would not save Britney any money because they would just employ somebody else who would get paid the same things. Hello, Mona Lisa. Britney's actual money is in a company called Stonebridge Investment Counsel and is being transferred to Panama, one of the tax haven. Well, hopefully that's not true. The court has access to all of her financial records, so things shouldn't be moved around without the court seeing it and without her notice and without these companies looking at it. And I'm hoping that with Bessemer Trust coming in, they will be going back and looking at all of the things for it. Karen Collins, I completely understand the feeling. Because he is the conservator, the conservatorship pays for his attorneys in his role as conservator. It's just like if you had a job and you had to go do a deposition because of the job, the employer would pay for it, not you. So that is what it is. Can reasonable limits be placed on how many lawyers can be paid? Low, it would take Sam Ingham objecting to it and the court agreeing with it. Because this is a long-running and complex conservatorship, I don't know if the court would be inclined to do that, because what the other attorneys will say is, well, we need this many attorneys because of the volume of work. And look, when I pull up these documents, it's voluminous. Some of this stuff takes hours on hours on hours to go through. So every now and then I get a comment like, there's ads on your video, girl. I'm like, do you know how much time it takes to go through all this shit? Yes, there's ads on the videos. Yes, there are, because it takes a lot of time to read through all these documents. But that doesn't mean I don't love doing it, because breaking down the law for y'all is my favorite shit ever. Always, always, always happy to see it. Love for the mods. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Shannon, that is very kind. Our mods do a great job keeping everything moving right along. Question: can the police pursue now on JC without the parents? No, there needs to be a person. In civil, sometimes in criminal, you can have a John Doe or a Jane Doe case where you don't have a named victim. It is more difficult and it is rare, and it normally involves the fact that how do we talk about this without being super dark? That somebody can't be identified, but you still have evidence surrounding what happened. Without the other party in what's going on with James Charles, you aren't going to have the complete totality of the evidence. It would be very hard to charge him with a Jane or John Doe victim. It's not saying it could never be done. It's not saying there's never a circumstance where there might be enough evidence to do that, but you would have to bring a case to get the subpoenas, to get the information from Snapchat. And I don't know how you bring a case without the evidence that you would need to be provided by one of the minors. Not saying it can't happen. I just don't see, with what we know publicly, how that could happen right now. Paper Squirrel question, is she totally being taken advantage of? It feels that way. It feels like a lot of money is being spent. Like a lot of money is being spent on this conservatorship. Um and it's hard for me to say what's needed and what's not needed. I want to trust that the court is doing what's in her best interest, that they believe's in her best interest, because that is the role of the court in this. Does that mean that the money is not just flying out to lawyers? I mean, who benefits? Is James Spears doing what he thinks is best for his daughter, or is he doing what's best for him to stay in this role of conservator and get it paid as such? With, everything we've seen in this, there's a lot that doesn't make sense, and there's a lot of lawyers. It doesn't mean that a lot of lawyers aren't appropriate in a complex conservatorship, but the thing that always sits wrong is that at the beginning of this, Britney was never allowed to bring in her own legal team, but is still having to pay for her father's legal team. And that's where it feels very inequitable, that it's like, well, she can't hire her own legal, but she can go ahead and pay for this. And that inequity is what really sits wrong. It doesn't mean that it's inappropriate for the conservator to have this many lawyers. It means that it feels unfair, or it feels imbalanced, because Britney didn't have the same opportunity to pick people she was comfortable with. And the argument on the other side of that is, well, that's the nature of a conservatorship. She can't make those decisions. And that's hard for me. So it feels that the money is ramping up, and that there's quite a lot of lawyer fighting, and they're fighting for their own. The lawyers for the conservator are fighting for their own position and fighting for their own interest, is how it feels to me. And that's why it feels inequitable, or that's why it feels like she's being taken advantage of, because it feels like they're looking out for themselves, not necessarily looking out for Britney. They don't see it that way. Clearly, they see it as, we're protecting Britney from the evils of the world and from people taking advantage of her. Okay. Who am I to say if $37,000 is too much for a complex estate? I don't know. It's a lot, but it might not be too much given the estate. The money that they were paying Lou Taylor seemed like an awful lot to me. Just what I was seeing. Kalo asked, I got to that one. There was another question. My chat kind of jumped a little bit, and I'm trying to make sure I have a placeholder. All right, perfect. Susan Moore, thank you for the super sticker. Could James Charles be placed on the sex offender list? It's a great question, Taylor. A lot of people, I think, don't know how this works. You have to be convicted of a crime that requires registration. So there would have to be criminal prosecution. There would have to be a criminal conviction, and that criminal conviction would have to be of a charge that requires that. Could that happen? Yes. Would a lot of shit have to happen for that to happen? Yes. Do I think that will happen? Given what we've seen in the public at this point, if the soliciting cases where people are being asked and photos are being sent, if those go forward, then that is a crime where that can happen. So we'll see. But it's a great question. Thank you for asking. Is there any chance Britney can take charge of her own money and skip the conservatorship? Ooh. Lord Croco Squirrel, that is the question. That is the question. This is kind of a 17-fold question. I'm going to try to make it a 2-fold question. Britney has not objected to being in the conservatorship at this point. She has not essentially asked for it to end yet. Can she ask for that? Yes. Can the court deny that request? Also, yes. What I think will happen is that they will continue to move forward with these smaller steps. And one of those steps that I've been anticipating since Jodi Montgomery was made the temporary conservatorship is moving to make Jodi Montgomery the permanent conservator of the person. And moving to do that removes her dad from the day-to-day decision-making over Britney, her medical records, where she can travel, her life with her boyfriend, all of those things. It keeps him on the business money side. I think that Britney, again, gut reaction, speculation, I think that Britney will move for more personal autonomy on the conservatorship of the person and leave the money stuff alone till later. At the end of the day, with an estate like Britney's, it's not unusual for her to have a business manager like the ones that we're seeing here to manage her very her voluminous and lucrative business entities, to manage the licensing deals and brand deals that are still happening with her name and her music, with her perfume and those sorts of things. It's not unusual to have someone else managing that. So I think that autonomy of the person is going to come first. And then maybe we will see Britney asking to be out of the conservatorship of the estate. But I think that that is more unlikely that she'll ask for that. I think personal first, money second. I don't know how much she cares about the money. I don't know how much she cares about the money. I think she wants, again, gut reaction. I think she wants her personal freedom more than she cares about people managing her money at this point. Okay. Alana says, if her dad dies, is this still a mess? A new conservator of the person would be estated, or the Bessemer Trust that's co-conservator would just become the full conservator. If her father and others involved under, is her father and others involved under a fiduciary duty in their roles? Yes, Dr. Riley, that's a great question. And they absolutely do have a duty to protect her best interest. I also wonder if, as Bessemer Trust gets into this, if they uncover things that they have questions about, how that will play out. It's why I was encouraged to see Bessemer coming in as a co-conservator. I don't know a lot about Bessemer. I have to hope and assume that a business entity whose job is to do the right thing by the estate will look at tracking down anything that's not been done properly. And I hope if there's anything in there that raises eyebrows, that will come to light. To light. I'm going to get through a few more questions. I think I jumped way back up real quick. So I'm going to, my chat just jumps, but that is the nature of it. Yikes. Okay. I answered that. This is a great question too, Caroline. Thank you for asking it. Can the state bring charges against James Charles if the parents do nothing? It is very, very difficult to go forward in cases like this without the cooperation of the underlying victims. And based on, look, that doesn't mean federally that can't happen, but if it's where James Charles lives, I can't see the new DA of LA doing that. I just can't see that happen based on the new regulations, guidelines, and office policies. Does that mean it can't happen? The police would have to have enough evidence and reliable evidence. Things on Twitter are enough to ask questions, but they're not evidence you can take to court. Things can be manipulated. Things can be altered or changed. You would need to have the digital evidence behind it to do that. If the police uncover that digital evidence and get it all from Snapchat or what have you, and are able to say, yes, we see these messages. Yes, we see a crime. Could they, in theory, do that? Yes. Is it unlikely? Yes. If there are minors living in other states and this gets federal and it crosses state lines, then it's a little bit different. You can have a different type of investigation because there's more investigative power and money in that. So could we see that happen? Possibly. A lot of prosecutors are hesitant to do that without cooperation of at least one of the victims. Now, does that mean that the prosecutors or the investigators wouldn't go to them and say, we're pursuing this, we would like to talk to you, versus a parent calling up the police and saying this happened to my child? That can absolutely happen. Question conspiracy. Hello, Bethany Cool. Do you think that if the victims of James Charles were female, this would be at a different point? I don't know. I don't know if, because there's so many factors in that. I don't know if YouTube would treat it differently if this was relating young females. I don't know if the parents involved would treat it differently if this involved young females. I know that the system is a little easier. I mean, it's not easier for any victim, but it might not feel as difficult for the victims to come forward because it's something that is more commonly seen. So it might be easier, or it might feel easier to the individuals receiving these messages to feel like they can come forward. But we also, depending on the states where people are, the police departments in most of California, I'm not going to say all because I don't know, are more progressive than that they're not going to be like, what do you mean boys are messaging boys? Like, that's not going to be out of step for them, and that's not going to be unusual for them. People can be victims of this kind of crime no matter what their gender or gender identity is. Would YouTube or Morphe treat it differently? I don't know. I just don't know. But thank you for the question. I wish I had, I don't know. I would like to think that it doesn't matter who the victims are or how they present, because what's wrong is wrong and what's criminal is criminal. And the underlying victim, the most important thing there is their age. Question from Samantha: will Britney ever be able to get out? Conservatorships are not made, like, they're not created for people to get out of them. That's not the goal. The goal is to keep somebody in the conservatorship and protect them until they inevitably pass, because conservatorships are generally meant for people who are of a more advanced age. So I don't know if she'll ask to get out. Again, I when I broke down my thoughts on the personal stuff, I think that the personal stuff is where she's going to spend her energy fighting. Sarah, hello. Question in regards to the Nike Satan shoe case. If the company paid for the shoes, 666 shoes is a lot, it seems, and Nike wins, could they counter sue and ask for their money back on the sale? If they're going to counter sue, I think we will see it. But no, I don't think they would succeed. And look, can they counter sue? Sure. Will they succeed in countersuing? I don't think so, because what they chose to do after the shoes was on their own, and how they used the shoes was on their own discretion. It's not Nike's fault that they chose to buy the shoes and then modify them such that Nike felt that their brand was being damaged. That was on them. So if there's a recall, could the court award, like, not the amount that was paid to the shoes? Possibly, but I don't think they can countersue. They chose to modify the shoes, but it's a great question. Thank you for asking. Belisa Bella, question: can James Charles lose his platform because of all these allegations? He can. He absolutely can. Will YouTube remove him? I mean, what will it take? As I said earlier, we saw YouTube go towards this creator conduct with regards to David Dobrik. Will they just take down all of his videos? I don't think so. Could they demonetize his channel? I do think so. Do Snapchat and TikTok need to take a look at this? I've seen TikTok at least remove people for less. So should that happen? I think the platforms should absolutely take a look at the amount of information that's come out. Because again, the platforms can't be sued by James Charles for removing him because they have protection on that. Will they do that because he's a big influencer? I don't know. I'm curious. I'm more curious to see how Snapchat and TikTok respond. Will YouTube demonetize him? I mean, it feels like at some point they got to do something, but we'll see. We'll see what they do. Also, I don't think I've said this. There are over 3,000 of us on live. Hello, Law Nerds. If you are not a Law Nerd yet, you can go ahead and just subscribe, and then you're a Law Nerd. I mean, you can always join the channel too. There's a join button. But if you want to just be a Law Nerd, go ahead and subscribe. Nothing special. You're a Law Nerd. You can go ahead and hit subscribe. We're chugging along towards 100,000 for sure. Amy asks, why did her mother wait so long to help Britney? Amy, I don't know. Hopefully her mom will write another book. I haven't read her mom's book. So I don't know. But I don't know. I really don't know. And it wasn't well addressed in the documentary. And I hope in things going forward, we might hear from Lynn and we might hear Lynn's side of the story. I just don't know if we will. Joe Jersey, this is a great question. If her dad mishandled the finances, the problem is, yeah, it depends if it was mishandling or if it was fraudulent. If it's just mishandling, we might not see much come of it because, again, the court approves all of this. So the financial documents go to the court. So if it's just you shouldn't have paid this or you should have negotiated better for that, we're not going to see anything come of it. The court approved. And in some cases, if Britney's attorney didn't object, there's not much that can be done. But if we see something that is illegal or fraudulent, and that's an if that is uncovered, then things can be done. And the court can, I mean, the court can initiate action on that. I just don't know if they will, because again, they approve these things. But if the court was misled, then you get into the realm of fraud, breach of fiduciary duty, breach of fiduciary responsibilities, defrauding the court, among other things off the top of my brain. If the conservative Wingling, hello, if the conservative doesn't have any money, then they get court-appointed counsel and there's not much of an estate to deal with. You tend to not see that a lot, but because the conservative does have to deal with some of the finances for the conservatorship. Can Britney's dad only object to court items regarding her money, estate, and not her management of Britney the person? Britney's dad can't object to her money because he's spending it. So Britney's attorney can object to spent items, but her dad's not the conservator of the person. That's Jody Montgomery. So Jody Montgomery is the one who who is in charge of that. So her dad doesn't have any say in that anymore. He is not the conservator of the person. So dad can ask the court for permission to spend money on certain things with regard to managing the estate, managing the assets and the money and the brand deals. He cannot deal with managing Britney, the person. He's not that conservator anymore. Hopefully that answers the question. If Britney is paying for their lawyers and her own that she can't choose, isn't that a conflict of interest? Smidge, it would feel like it is, but in the context of the conservatorship, it is not, because the court is also managing those things. But yes, it is a conflict, but no, in the context of a conflict that cannot be overcome in court, it is not, which is one of the weird things about conservatorships. I have been watching Observe Nights Husseini, but I don't know other body language YouTubers. Observe, I like that he calls his fans or his community the idiots. I like the way he breaks things down. I like that he seems to like pop culture, and I like that there's some snark sometimes. I enjoy it. All right, I'm going to keep going because I've missed some super chats. So I'm absolutely going to try to catch up with those. And again, a big thank you to the mods. I think I caught up with a lot of these. So I'm going to try to catch up with some of these super chats, you guys. Give me a second. Because I want to make sure I didn't answer things. Did I lose things? I lost things. Hello, Rich Lux. Do you think James Charles could pay off families to not go to the police? I absolutely think that could happen. And again, it's not, there are contexts where that can be illegal to do, but in the criminal space, you can see people try to civilly compromise cases, which means they have reached a civil settlement to not pursue the criminal case any further. We saw this with Jeffree Star, as alleged in the Insider article. But yes, that can happen. Now, where that shifts into the world of like coercion is a whole different thing, but that doesn't mean that an investigation might not start independent of an individual's cooperation, because there's so much attention on this that investigations might start without the initial cooperation or without somebody going to the police. It doesn't mean the police might not come to them at some point, but yes, James can try absolutely behind the scenes to pay off victims. And he would not be the first rich, powerful, or celebrity individual that has done so. And those things tend to bubble to the surface, but that can absolutely happen. Again, if it's not bribery, coercion, it's not illegal to do so. It's distasteful to a lot of people, but it's not illegal. And I talked about it a bit earlier where the families might not want to be connected to this publicly. The parents might want this to just stop and go away and move on. And that might be a solution for them. I'm not going to judge what people do. And I'm not going to judge how they choose to move forward in this because you never know what's going on in people's lives that they might just not want to publicly be connected with this in a criminal prosecution. Babs1 NYC, does YouTube actually care? JC brings them a lot of money. With Onision, it took a mainstream documentary to have his channel demonetized. I don't know if YouTube cares. I don't know. I don't know if those inside of YouTube feel misled or disappointed. I don't know how the conversations went about to have James Charles no longer be the face of instant influencer. I don't know if the heads of YouTube feel any kind of way. If I was a, C-suite higher up at YouTube who had pushed for James Charles to have his show, I imagine those things have to have a conversation. I don't know how they work behind the scenes. This is how, I would imagine that there would be conversations at the highest levels of YouTube if you're giving somebody like a YouTube Red show, like Instant Influencer, that whoever pushed for James Charles to have that show after the Bi Sisters scandal would be very upset that this is going on again. And it's interesting because Aphrodite touches on that a little in his last reading on all of this. But if I was the person who had been pushing for James to get this show or had been championing James after the scandal for his bounce back, and then all of this went down, I would be deeply, deeply frustrated with this. So I don't know how the people behind YouTube feel. And at some point, YouTube does what they do to protect their platform because they are a large public platform. If there were a criminal investigation going on for JC, would they keep it under wraps? Yeah. Yes, Nats. They would not. Oh, sorry. My foot thing just absolutely slipped out from under me as I was trying to readjust for the 12th time because I'm wiggly today. No, an open and ongoing investigation would generally not be discussed until they were ready to do something with it. Can Britney ask for a different judge to oversee her conservatorship? It would be, I don't even think there would be grounds for it at this point. This has been the judge on the conservatorship for quite an extended period of time. There was one judge change early on, but I don't think I don't think they would have the grounds to show that there was some kind of a bias or other reason that would require this judge being removed. I'm going to keep looking because I know I missed a few more super chats. Lewis asked question, can Britney be reassessed to see if she still needs to have a conservatorship? At some point, I'm sure that will happen, especially if she asks to have some changes made to the conservatorship of the person. But it's going to depend on what those around her experience in their interactions with her if they ask for that to move forward. Ms. Mona, how the hell can YouTube allow JC to continue? He confessed in a video. What more proof do they need? You make an excellent point. Drew Webb, thank you for the super chat. Do you think James Charles will pay off the two larger victims once he acknowledged in the apology in a way to discredit everyone in it all? If it's settled, does he get off scot-free for it all? It's very hard to see the future. It's very hard because there is so many tangents. Could James theoretically go to try to resolve this behind the scenes with those individuals so that they don't continue coming forward publicly? Absolutely, he could. He might already be doing so. His lawyers might be advising him to do so. That's not uncommon. That does happen. It's not illegal. It feels distasteful. But does that mean that at this point, with how public this is, an investigation won't start independently? No. Can people choose not to cooperate with that? Yes. Do I think that will happen at some point? It feels like it kind of has to, but maybe it won't. I mean, if James is like, I did nothing wrong, like I shouldn't have messaged, but they lied to me. If he believes that bullshit, then he might not want to pay anybody off because he's like, no, they lied. It's their fault. I'm not doing anything and I'm not paying anyone. Would he try to buy the rights to like those videos and stuff? Also possible. Like, hey, you posted all these TikToks. I want to buy the copyrights to those TikToks so you can't continue re-airing them. And then he can have other people taking them down. Could I see him doing that? Yeah. Or at least his team doing that. Absolutely. Absolutely. Which would be a very effective way to say, I own the copyrights to these. They can't be redistributed. Of course, people will argue fair use, but I could see that happening. The stuff that's come out, if true, is just so damaging. I don't think he can get off. Can he get off without? Can he move forward without criminal responsibility in this? Yes. Is he going to get off untarnished from this? Is he going to move forward untarnished from this? I think that's up to the community. And I think that's up to those calling it out, saying that this is not okay. And it's up to his audience and whether they continue to support him, because if his audience doesn't support him, there's no point in YouTube supporting him, sponsors supporting him, Morphe supporting him, because it damages them too, because people are moving away from it. Maria V, thank you so much. I think the worst thing about this is millions of kids who don't think they'll be believed, who have a warped idea of what adults can do to kids. How do we deal with that? YouTube, Snapchat awareness drive. I think continuing to talk about it is the first step to how we deal with that. I think giving grace on social media is how we deal with that. The problem when things like this happen that I see is that there will be those that are legitimate victims coming forward, and then there will also be trolls coming forward. And that always I don't want to say diminish. It doesn't diminish what happened to the individuals, but in the public eye, it always spreads these questions about like whether this is accurate, whether this is authentic. And that's where the damage comes in sometimes from the trolling. It's just, there's so many that have come forward. And this is not the first time. There's just, this has been going on for years now. There are plenty of other creators on YouTube that are not problematic like this. Do you think if Britney was a man, she wouldn't have been put into a conservatorship? Because there are guys out there that have similar behaviors without conservatorships. Little Red Star, I definitely believe that there is an element of that here. I think that her dad, her daddy, and these lawyers thought they were going to save her because she was a distressed little girl. I'm not saying that at the time, there weren't issues, because I think when the conservatorship started, there were legitimate concerns for Britney's safety, health, well-being, and finances. Would they have pushed her into this if she was a man the same way? I don't think so, but that was at the time. If it was happening now, it's hard to reassess because this happened so many years ago. And attitudes have changed. Not all attitudes have changed, but I do think her dad was like, you need a man to save you. I definitely think that was part of it. Oh, Cassie Goss, thank you so much. We're just here. We're just going to grow our little law-nerd corner of the universe and keep going and do our best to be inclusive, to speak the truth, to point out the facts, to point out the fuckery, to know the difference betwixt the two, and to keep having the conversations, even when they're hard and even when we're just tired of having the conversations. I think YouTube should at least demonetize. Being a YouTuber is a privilege. It absolutely is a privilege, April O. And again, they have to keep the same energy that they kept with David Dobrik. Creator standards, and those creator standards extend beyond just the YouTube platform, because you can't just go wild and out. because it can also damage the platform. And I feel, I feel that at some point YouTube has to protect its other creators, because if YouTube as a platform is being tarnished because of what a creator or a couple problematic creators are doing, it tarnishes the platform for all creators. When you have something like a Logan Paul adpocalypse for what he did, and again, Logan Paul in this, similar to David Dobrik, I think, pushing like the outrage for views, pushing the wildness for views, pushing the prank, like, blah, blah, buy my merch, blah, pushing all of that for views, going further and further and further. When there was a reckoning for that, it affected all of the creators on the platform, all of them. It affected, not just the ones that are pushing appalling content for views, but when advertisers back away from a platform because of something like what Logan Paul did, all creators are hurt. If advertisers back away from the platform because it's like, this platform is platforming James Charles and look at what the fuck is happening, and we don't want our brands associated with James Charles, but we don't want our brands associated with the platform allowing it to happen, it hurts all creators across the platform. And at some point, YouTube, I think, owes it morally to the creator. And again, we're talking about morals in a company. I get it. Owes it to protect all of the creators on the platform, not just the one with the 25 million subs, because those subs will go elsewhere, and they will go to other creators, and they will go watch Nikki tutorials. Please do. Like, is Nikki tutorials at 25 million subs? Can we do that? Can we give Nikki tutorials all of the subs? Can we just do that? How about that? How about we just give her all the subs? She's lovely. I want to see how many she has. I'm looking. I love Nikki tutorials. 13.8 million subs. Can we just give her the 25 million subs and just do that? Let's just do that. Let's do that. Why does Nikki tutorials have less subs than James Charles and Jeffree Star? I hate that at all. Jen the Bubble, this is a great question. Mishandling versus fraud. So when I'm talking about mishandling and the way I interpret the question regarding mishandling of funds, I'm thinking of, mistakes made. You should have negotiated a better rate for this manager. You shouldn't have paid this much money for a storage unit. That would be your mishandling. Like, why are you spending the money the way you're spending it? That's poor choices. So mishandling being poor choices versus fraud, which is a nefarious and illegal attempt to do something that's illegal. Like, hey, the reason I didn't negotiate for a better rate is because there was this side deal and I was getting a cut of the amount of money the estate was paying to this person over here. That's how I differentiate between the two. And I think I missed a few more super chats. I hope I didn't. All right. I don't think I did. I just wanted to make sure. Oh, yes, I did. All right. If I missed any, I am sorry. I'm trying to catch them up. So I appreciate it. Wasn't the Perez guy permanently removed from TikTok for messaging young girls? JC fully admitted using the platform to do the same to young boys. And he had some other problematic stuff too. But yes, Perez Hilton was absolutely removed and banned from TikTok. So was that vegan teacher. Like, problematic people have been removed from TikTok for sure. Scarlett's brain is on fire. So in theory, could there be a family that has already pressed charges against James Charles that we don't know about? There could be an ongoing investigation that we don't know about. If charges were brought, it would hit the public because the charges would be public. Let's take a pause and talk about criminal prosecution for a second. In a criminal prosecution, you kind of have two routes. One, what we're seeing with Jen Shah, an investigation, a grand jury, which is a secret proceeding, an indictment that's under seal. The indictment gets unsealed and then a person's arrested that same day. That's what we saw in the Jen Shah case and others like it. What you can see in state level and sometimes federal almost always uses a grand jury. What you see in state level prosecutions is there will be either a thing happens, police are called, they show up, they arrest the person on scene, take them in, and then they get charged. Or there's an investigation into a thing, they present it to prosecutors, and then they get an arrest warrant for it. They go and arrest an individual, bring it in, and then they're arraigned and charges are brought. But at that point that somebody is arrested and arraigned, that would hit the papers because it's public. Or you can have a case filed for warrant where the prosecutors say, yes, we've looked at this investigation. We agree charges should be brought. We're filing this case for warrant. We're issuing a warrant in the system for this person. Whenever they get arrested, they will be brought into court on this. I had a case filed for warrant that came across my desk ages and ages and ages ago. It was a homicide, and the person had been out of the country and came back into the country and was arrested. The case had been filed for warrant like 6 years or 7 years prior to when they were finally arrested. Let me tell you what tracking everybody down 7 years later was like. But that can happen too, but those things become public. The private part's the investigation, and if it's federal, the grand jury until an arrest is made. But once charges are brought, once prosecutors bring charges, that stuff tends to hit the news cycle pretty quickly. And if it's the LADA's office, when they bring things, they tend to press release large things so that they can provide the information. People also do public information records requests to get information too, and they would do that. Thank you, Miranda Crochets. Appreciate it. I'm going to get to a few more questions, and then we are going to, I forgot to talk about court of public opinion. Did I? I don't remember, but I need to mention that too. Question: if a creator hires someone to monitor another full-time and has promised $100K for the first other creator to sue that creator, is that illegal? It reminds me of the Without a Crystal Ball, but more malicious. Oh, is it Christina? I saw this go down on Twitter yesterday. I don't like the way any of this went down on Twitter yesterday, and I know that you're referring to Keemstar and Def Noodles. I don't know what the beef is between those two. I have not kept up with the beef between those two. The issuance of an award for a creator to sue or for legal fees to sue is a whole thing. Is it illegal? I mean, no. There's nothing illegal in it. Does it feel pointed? Yes. But what would the illegality be? From what I saw on Twitter, it was Keemstar offering, $100,000 in legal fees to the first creator that sues Def Noodles, but it would be legal fees. The thing is, you would have to have actually grounds for a lawsuit, though I will always say that people can sue people. Anyone can sue anyone for anything. The attorney has to have a belief that the charges happened. I don't know what started let's just pull up Twitter. I don't know what started the issue. And I am not going to get in between what creators are doing with each other, because I really don't know what has gone on between these creators. And I don't know why, there is issue, but I'm going to look and see what Keemstar said about it, because I don't know if he said that there was background to that. I understand Keem, it seems, thinks, and I don't look, we're not going to talk about, I don't like anything any creator does. I mean, I don't think anyone likes everything that I do either, I'm sure. But it seems from the tweets that Keem thinks that Def Noodles, Trisha, and Ethan are slandering people. If it was on Twitter, it would be libel, but if it was in video, it would be slander. This is the tweet I think that you're talking about. Def Noodles blocked me for archiving his slandering tweets. Again, tweets would be libelous, but I digress. Same different side of the coin with defamation. Please notify him that I'm sick and tired of him slandering creators, and I don't know what he's referring to, and I will go look into it. I don't know what Keem is saying is slanderous. So I've hired someone full-time to archive everything he posts. And again, that probably is also happening in the Toddy Without a Crystal Ball case, that someone is archiving everything that Without a Crystal Ball does. But if it's posted publicly, it's posted publicly. So that can be done without it being nefarious. That's just recording public things. I will offer $1,000 in legal aid to the first creator that sues him. Again, that creator would have to have a reasonable belief that they had been slandered. So I don't know what the tipping point is for this. I don't know what statements Keem believes are slanderous. I don't know. I don't know what the beef is there. I have honestly not followed closely what their issues are with the other, but I did see that tweet and I was like, that seems odd. Um, but again, I don't know what the issue is there between between the two creators, and I don't know what this alleged defamatory or slanderous or Twitter libelous statements are. But thank you for asking. I wish I had more input. I don't know the underlying beef. In regards to Britney Spears, does she get medically evaluated every year to see if she still needs her conservatorship? At this point, the conservatorship is permanent, so she would have to ask for it to be removed. I don't know the frequency they've set up for her evaluations. I have not seen that, but that's something her attorneys can ask for too. So I'm going to try to get a few more questions in. Question: could James Charles have an investigation open to try to clear his name? I mean, that would something he would have to do. If all of these things are not legal, if all of the I don't know, if all of the people that came forward, or if any of the people that came forward had faked screenshots, which based on the fact that James had said, I have done these things, I don't think is the case for all of them. Does that mean that some of them can't be faked? No, it doesn't mean that. Of course, some of them could be faked. We don't know. But James hasn't come forward and said any of those screenshots are fabricated. At this point, he's come forward and said, I shouldn't have done some of these things that I did. So I don't know what he would investigate, but he can't have the police investigate this to clear his name. If he's criminally charged with something, he and his defense attorney will make sure that they can defend it. Will his PR team behind the scenes be looking into what's authentic and what's not? Maybe. But he open an investigation in a criminal sense, no. There's no procedure for that. There's no recourse for that, and there's no right to that. If he's criminally charged, he has the right to a defense, and part of his defense will be investigating the veracity and accuracy of screenshots and things that are said. Could he privately have a private investigator to look into these things? Of course he could. He's allowed to do that. How would he clear his name at this point? Because I don't think anyone's going to listen to his videos. And he said, Emily opinion, he came with No More Lies, with the receipts and the screenshots, the receipts, the deleted tweets, the receipts, Whitney. I need a fucking fan at some point as we talk about things so adjacent to the beauty community. But he didn't do that in this video. And I don't know if he didn't do that because there aren't receipts. Because he said on Twitter, I messaged these things. His defense seems to be, I didn't message, but I didn't know they were underage. That seems to be his defense. That defense is not going to hold up, but that seems to be his defense. Do you think YouTube is allowing James Charles to continue because he's friends with the owner? Susan Wozniak, not the owner, but the CEO. But do I think that has something to do with it? It's a lot harder sometimes to hold your friends accountable than to hold strangers on the internet accountable, isn't it? I mean, we saw that with Rachel Hollis yesterday, or was it the day before? And Amy Porterfield. And if you're not ensconced in the online entrepreneur girl boss space, you might be like, who the fuck are these names? Anyway, I get it. But Amy Porterfield has been friendly with Rachel Hollis and came out and said, look, I need to make a statement to my very large community, but I also reached out to her privately. Do I think that there are probably behind the scenes conversations about this? Yes. We saw it take a little bit of time with David Dobrik too. I don't know if YouTube thought that removing him from instant influencers would be enough, but I'm sure the relationship there matters because it's easier to just be like, I don't know who they are, screw it, whatever, versus somebody that you've had personal interaction with. That's what I think. A question: what do you think about Keem's view on mental? I have no idea what Keem's views on mental illness are. After watching Ethan's videos, I felt like he instigated, mocked, and benefited after the fact, and it didn't sit right. I don't know what Keem's views are. I don't follow him closely enough to know. I see some of the things he reports on. I see some of the things he tweets that make me raise an eyebrow or two. Keem is very strong in his opinions. He does not care if those are controversial. I don't think he's the most inclusive creator. I think he would probably say that I was being soft and or overly politically correct for saying that. But again, Keem's channel, just like Def Noodle's channel, in my view, are resource channels. If you like one of the creators and they're reporting on these stories, watch them. If you don't like the way that they behave on social, don't. It's not me supporting or saying that, this one's better than that one. They are creators in the space. I find that Keem is pretty upfront with who he is, but I also think Def Noodles is pretty upfront with who he is. I might be wrong. I don't see everything that they do. So I don't know. I don't know what his views are. I think mocking mental illness is always a problem. And if that happened, that's problematic for me. What if James Charles' case became international, like James was in contact with somebody in Europe or South America? Snapchat isn't used in North America only. Do I think international authorities would get involved? Probably not. I think it would be dealt with where he lives, and I think it would only be dealt with where he lives. Does that mean that international authorities can't investigate if there is a victim that comes forward in that area? No, it doesn't. They can. Let's get to a few more conversations. I wonder how the D'Amelio family are reacting to this too, Bethany Cool. We also have seen other influencers definitely distance themselves. Who is James Charles' community? I'd be interested to know how many are minor boys, which could be a good indicator. Marty, it's a great question. I think his viewership is probably very young. I don't know if that shows up on one of the analytics apps, but I know there is conversation that he has a very young audience, especially since he has branched out and started playing Among Us with some of the very popular gaming creators. That's honestly when I mentioned James Charles to my husband months ago when we were talking about the first minors and individuals that were coming forward. I mentioned James Charles and my son's like, "Oh, hi sisters." I'm like, "How the fuck do you know who I didn't say how the fuck. I said, "How do you know who James Charles is?" But in my brain, I said, "How in the fuck do you know who James Charles is? Like, this is not content that I think you're watching." And he goes, "Oh, he's played Among Us with so-and-so, so-and-so, and so-and-so." So I think there is an audience that is aware of James Charles outside of his beauty content because of who he's been friends with. If those people continue to do things like play Among Us with him, content that is very popular for kids, even if it's not made for kids, it will be interesting to see. I will be very interested to see who continues to collaborate with him going forward. I think that will say quite a lot. Would you, hello, Julia, would I, as a former prosecutor, consider James Charles's apology video in a potential investigation as evidence? Yes, I certainly would. I certainly would, because you know what? He said it. He said it on video. He chose to upload it. He chose to edit it. He said that shit on video. Absolutely, I would. Just like I would consider things that you said on the Real Housewives evidence, just like anything that an individual says could be evidence. Is it under oath? No. Would I ask someone about it if they testified under oath? Yes. Are there rules for evidence about how something can come in? Yes. But this, I think the veracity of it could be ascertained because it's his face and it's uploaded to his YouTube channel, and you could subpoena YouTube and see what VPN or IP it was uploaded from. You could see where it came from. You could authenticate it through somebody who is familiar with James Charles, or also saying, this person sitting here is that person's face. Detective, is the person's face on the screen this person? He also says at the beginning of it, "Hi, everyone, it's James Charles." So, and he talks about himself by his given name, James Dickinson, and by James Charles. He's vague in what he talks about, but I think you could tie it back to specific incidents because he does talk about two, if those are the incidents being prosecuted. So yes, I would absolutely consider it. When evidence comes in court, generally involves hearings about what can be shown and what can't be shown, what's relevant, what's actually authentic evidence that is truth of the matter asserted. But it's his statement. So it's a statement of a party opponent in a criminal case. Yes, I've gone far afield. Yes, I would consider it. just like I've seen prosecutors use people's music that they've produced and put out on Amazon and Apple Music against them in court. Susie, I don't know. Where I live, Canada, 16 and 21 is legal. So curious if it might be why people aren't going as hard. I don't know the youngest. I've seen rumblings about a 14-year-old. I don't know if those are accurate or not, because I've also seen people take those down. So I don't know the youngest. But in the States, 16 is still a minor, 17 is still a minor. So where James Charles is sitting, that can still be illegal from him. I'm going to do just a few more questions. Oh, I meant to talk about court of public opinion real quick. For all of you that are still here, if you are not law nerds yet, go ahead and hit subscribe. With regard to court of public opinion, I am working at the brackets. Life. I got delayed because life. So we'll get those up for you for sure. So thank you, Tech Valor, for reminding me of that. Those will be up. I will share them on social and on the community tab here. It's just going to take me a little more time. Hello, Paul. The intent versus the action doesn't really matter to the victim. Absolutely. It no longer should become how the perpetrator will become better / changed, but rather how will the victims cope and move on. I think there's definitely going to be some healing that has to happen with that for sure. What would you do if I was the mom of the boys that James targeted? Well, I don't know how I would respond. You always like to think how you'd respond when something happens, and then when something horrible happens, you might respond totally differently because we don't get to pick our stress responses. Would I go to the police if I thought that was the appropriate thing to do? I absolutely would. But my kids aren't on social media yet, so I hope that when my kids are on social media, that I will know what they are doing. I also believe that I have fostered a relationship with my kids that when things make them feel uncomfortable, they come to me. My oldest has come to me from things that go on online games that he plays, people using words that he doesn't use and talking about how uncomfortable he is with that and how he chooses to handle it. And we do talk through, like, this happened. How do I handle this? And so I would also have long conversations with my kid, because once my kid's a teen, my decision isn't the only decision that matters. Their decision matters too. But if there was stuff I thought that was illegal, I would go to the police. But also, that would be a conversation that the family and the kid would have. Jess, a very, very good. Before I move on, I would also be really fucking pissed. I don't think I said that. I would be really fucking angry. Like really fucking angry. Like really, really fucking angry. What is a fiduciary? A fiduciary is a person who has a legal obligation to another person, a legal responsibility to do right by essentially another person, a legal obligation to not be shitty. So you can owe fiduciary responsibilities to a business. They're a legal type of a don't be shitty responsibility. Question, YouTube and other platforms. Kendra, I'm thinking you're asking, can YouTube and other platforms sue James Charles and other public creators for damaging their brand? That's an interesting question. I think the remedy for the platforms is to remove the person from the platform. I don't think you can leave them on the platform and then turn around and say, oh, but they violated our terms of use and we're suing them, because the remedy for violating the terms of use would be removing them from the platform. And the second you didn't remove them, then they would say, well, your remedy was to remove me. You don't have a remedy to sue me. But I would have to think about it a little bit and see if there would be another quirk to that. Initial gut response is that their right to continue the damage. The business, if they are being damaged, has the right to remove the content and remove the person. So there wouldn't be a need to sue them because they have the power to remove them, if that makes sense. I would think that would be the first step. And if they didn't do that, that would be a defense. I'm going to pronounce this horribly. Malone YM. Malonim? Is that how we're pronouncing it? I'm going to try. Doesn't his confession negate the KJ defense that Tati was lying about him? I mean, it feels like it does to me. I think that the implications that the James Charles, I wonder how much the James Charles video is playing into conversations that like Saltsy and Tati and their teams are having about moving forward with this lawsuit, or if James Charles video plays into the conversations, that KJ is having with her team behind the scenes. Because if her defense is Tati lied about this kid and I just called it out, well, James's video saying I should have listened back then seems to indicate that Tati wasn't lying about him. So I think it would absolutely have an impact on how that moves forward. And we saw that if you go back and look at my video about the motion to dismiss, a lot of the language of the motion to dismiss from KJ was the story or her story, her side from her perspective, that Tati's a dick because Tati attacked James Charles and Sister with vicious, vicious lies and with harmful stereotypes. So James coming out and saying, I should have listened to that video, seems to undercut a lot of that defense. I love seeing you guys chat amongst each other. And sometimes when I get slow in talking, I'm just reading you guys talk to one another because I'm fascinated. That is between the two. Hello, Kathy K. Chiron, I think we're going with that. Can we do anything to keep teens away from people like James Charles on this platform? I'm not a mom, but I want to do something. I don't know the answer to that. I really don't know the answer to how we keep kids safe, what responsibility the platforms have, what responsibility the parents have, where those responsibilities lie. And I tend to lean towards personal responsibility for sure, but I also find things like video game and movie ratings helpful as a parent. If a video game is rated, NC-17 plus, I want to know why. Is it because they say fuck? Because if it's just because they say fuck, I might be able to roll with that. But if there's actual horrible, realistic gore and sexy things and hardcore drug use, then I might have a different perspective from those things versus curse words. So I find those things helpful. Would I be pissed if somebody was like, you can't choose to allow your child to play a video game with curse words in it? Yeah, I'd be like, we're totally cool with the cursey words at this house, and I know my kids, and it's different per kid. Can there be things that make it easier for parents to understand what their kids are watching? I don't know, because I also don't trust an algorithm to like rate channels. Like, do you start getting like, this is a G-rated YouTube channel, this is an X-rated YouTube channel, this is a NC-17 rated YouTube channel? Because then that hurts creators and advertisers, because educational content like us, we talk about all kinds of things that could fall into all kinds of different ratings. But if you label a channel like X because we say cursey words and talk about things like assault, it damages creators. So I don't know what can be done. I think awareness for parents is huge, like what to look for, and just parents understanding what's going on across platforms, because we see it with a creator who steps in some shit on YouTube. The people that follow them on Instagram might not even know. And so I don't know how to make parents aware or help parents become aware of what their kids' favorite content creators are doing across platforms. But it does take work, for sure. It does take work for sure. Hello, Lori Smith. Thank you. We are definitely closing in on purple hair for sure. For sure. So I just want to make sure I get all of the super chats that are still in the thing. Hello, Miss Opinionated. Have any of the people that you've discussed on your channel contacted you for legal representation? Andy Cohen said very little about Jen Shah. I mean, I don't know what Andy Cohen can say about Jen Shah. No one has contacted me for legal representation. I also feel like I've made it clear that I do not do that kind of legal work anymore. I do consulting work only. I do not do legal representative work. And I think I've made that really clear. Like, I do not want to at all. I also feel like for a lot of the people I talk about, I pretty openly give my opinion on the channel. So if they want to know what I have to say about it, I mean, I say it. I don't hold much back on this channel. And the things I do hold back tend to be my opinion. So yeah. But no, none of the people I've discussed on this channel have contacted me for legal representations, nor would I want them to. Early on in the Toddy Westbrook case, KJ emailed me and I did not email her back because I was not interested in interviewing her or her attorney, just like I wasn't interested in interviewing Saltsy or Toddy or James Westbrook. So look, I like to do commentary. I'm here to do commentary. I'm not here to do representative work for sure at all. So let's see. I saw a comment about age of consent being 16 elsewhere. And again, is that something that needs to be considered in the US? I don't know. I would imagine 16-year-olds would say yes. I would imagine parents would be like, yikes. But the US gets uptight about a lot of stuff. I don't think that, I mean, the laws are the laws and everybody knows the age of majority is 18. So that doesn't really come into play. Whether the age of majority in the US should change is a whole different question. Do I think 16-year-olds are emotionally mature? No. Repercussions for lying about your age, form of manipulation. There are no repercussions for lying about your age in a criminal context. Could it come up in a criminal defense? Absolutely. Could there be repercussions? Not really. It would come up to whether somebody was being truthful or not. Though I think when we get into a influencer power dynamic, it would be easy for most to understand and explain, look, somebody who wants to talk to their favorite creator might lie about their age to continue to talk to their favorite creator. That's why power dynamics are a thing, but that's also why there's laws. I don't understand why James was soliciting photos from people. Also, there's that interview where James is saying, I am looking for the youngest possible, 18-year-old I can find. And, I want to fly people out to hang with me, but, they may still be in high school or college. That wasn't a slip. It's because he is looking for people who have just turned 18 who may still be in high school. My opinion. I am getting to a few more questions and then we are going to absolutely wrap up. We're at like 2 hours. We're going to wrap up quickly. If I missed your questions, we had lots of Q&A today, and I am sorry if we missed anything, though I might have gotten to your question adjacent earlier on because I know people come in and come out of it. So thank you for joining the channel. Jordan, I think that that's a very strong and accurate statement. I think a creator would have to defame YouTube directly before YouTube would sue a creator. I don't see them doing it because a creator is ruining their reputation on the platform's network. I can absolutely see that because the platform can just remove the platform has the ability to stop the creator from creating on the platform versus Nike, who doesn't have the ability to stop mischief from having these shoes walking around in the world. Question, does this video affect the lawsuit between Tati? Can they refile with this as new evidence? It might change because we saw, and as I talked about a bit earlier, we saw kind of the story of the defense in the motion to dismiss. So does this go more towards James saying that the things in Bi Sister were true? Yes. I mean, unless, of course, KJ has evidence saying, I have knowledge that the things said were a lie, and that's why my statements are not defamatory, because truth is a defense to defamation. But James seems to be coming out saying, no, what Tati said was true. So that becomes very important. Would they file with this video as new evidence? No. Would they file knowing that this video undercuts any potential defense that Tati was lying and Bysister? Yes. But Bysister wasn't the crux of the entire suit. So we'll see. Could that video push settlement conversations behind the scenes? It absolutely could, because it shifts the ground that defense is standing on as to whether these statements are true or not. So that can happen for sure. Bysister did not specifically involve minors, but James saying that this was a pattern of behavior and he should have listened goes towards it. You guys, so many great questions today. Thank you for all of the great questions. I appreciate all of you for being here. If you are not yet a Law Nerd, please go ahead and hit that subscribe button. Shocked Kitten, thank you. My kids are 23, 21, and 11. I have their passwords, and I'm in the room when they are on the internet till 18. And that's what some of this is going to take, is knowing what kids are up to. And it takes effort and time for sure. And I play the games my kids play too. Rusty Carr said my mom became a gamer to know what games we were playing. I do that too. And I love it. But I also love Animal Crossing more. I'm terrible at Call of Duty. Casey said, your Instagram live last night made my crappy day a great one. I laughed so hard. I'm so glad. Look, when I get all the ranty on the things, sometimes that just happens on Instagram for sure. BG Sands, what's the difference between consulting work and representative work? That is a great question, and it's going to be my last question. In the consulting work I do not file lawsuits, pick what charges should be brought, pick what defenses should be set forth, pick the scope of a lawsuit, negotiate with other attorneys, call other attorneys on the phone and be like, my client wants to do this. I don't take on clients in that way that I'm representing in court or representing in a lawsuit or sending out cease and desist for. I consult. So I consult with creators about YouTube. I consult with lawyers about the new world of social media. I consult with people considering whether they need to file a lawsuit or not, and what kind of those options look like when they go to their own lawyer. I am here to have those conversations. I am not here to write the lawsuit, file it, and converse with other attorneys. I don't do that anymore, and I'm so glad that I don't. Kira said, if JC is charged criminally, would have separate trials for each minor at a time, or would a trial encompass all minors at once? Just curious. Love you. Thank you, Kira. I'm sorry to lawyer answer you. It depends on how it's brought. If it's filed in one location with multiple victims, then they would all come to court and testify in one case. So if it's charged with 10 causes of action for 10 different victims, then all of them would come to court for that one case. If LA files a case and over here files a case and over there files a case, then they would be separate. So it really, really, really just depends. Just depends. But it's a great question. Thank you. I'm terrible at Call of Duty. I used to love Call of Duty, and it moves too fast for me. So it just does. It just does. Thank you, everyone, for being here. Thank you for joining us for Coffee and Cursey Words. I have a new video pre-recorded dropping tomorrow. I don't expect anything else to pop off this week, so I expect to be live here for Friday Night Live. If I go live before that, I will text the text crew. But again, I hope that nothing else pops off. I need a quiet week. Y'all need a quiet week. We all need a minute. So make sure you're part of the text crew at Text Emily. Make sure you're subscribed here with notifications on, because I do post things in my community tab as well. And with that, I will see you in the next one. Thank you for being here, and thank you for being honored. Connect with me everywhere. I'm at the Emily D. Baker. If you guys want to join the text, just textemily.com. If you want to join the channel, lawnerdsunite.com. Happy to have you. Support what we do here on the YouTube